So let's go over test 73, section 2, question 1. This is a logical reasoning question. You want to read it?
Sure. So editorial says the city has chosen a contractor to upgrade the heating systems in public buildings. Okay. Nothing to say about that, really.
Sounds like a
Only
plan.
40. Oh, there's no logic there or anything, right? That's
Yeah.
clearly just like some background. Um,
hmm
Only 40% of the technicians employed by this contractor are certified by the Heating Technicians Association. And now all of a sudden I have a lot to say.
Okay.
Um, I'm sure you, Ben, are also predicting. It's like you get so good at the LSAT that you don't just predict an answer after you've read the question or whatever.
hmm
It's you expect people to make bad arguments and you start calling bullshit on them like preemptively,
Yep. Yeah.
right?
hmm
So I don't know for sure that they're going to do this, but I'm extra on guard when they say only 40% of the technicians employed by this contractor are certified by the Heating Technicians Association. I'm
hmm
expecting them to go, therefore, the city has chosen an inferior contractor.
Yeah. Yeah. The only 40% screams to me that they think that this is going to be a problem. I don't know what they're going to say about it, like you said, but I'm anticipating that. And already I'm objecting to that because I'm like, do the technicians need to be certified? Do they need to be certified by the Heating Technicians Association? Like, what the fuck is that? And are the technicians that they're going to send to the city going to be among these 40%, even if you grant them that they need to be certified by this random organization? Right? Like there are so many problems
Yeah.
that
They
I'm
haven't even gone
anticipating.
there yet, but I feel like that's where they're going. And I know in
Yep.
advance that my job on LSAT logical reasoning is to call bullshit on dumb arguments. Like that
Yep.
when they make an argument, which they do what, 3/4 of the time,
Mm-hmm.
it's a dumb argument like 90% of those times.
Yep.
So on for sure more than half the questions, I know that the game is just, hey, call bullshit on whatever, allow them their premises, but don't let them reach stupid conclusions because that's what they're going to do.
Yep.
So I'm not arguing that only 40% of the technicians employed by this contractor are certified by the Heating Technicians Association. I'm willing to grant that that's true,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not willing to grant that it's good to be certified by the Heating Technicians Association.
Or that
Right?
it's
Like,
necessary.
where's your evidence that that even matters? Maybe there's
Yeah.
some bogus trade organization affiliated with the mob where you just have to like be in their club.
Mm-hmm.
It might be that those people never show up for work. The ones who are certified, like that's the ones that aren't going to show up for work.
And you don't fuck with them.
Right. As far as we know, that could be the worst thing in the world to be certified by the Heating Technicians Association. Now, it might be good, but it might be bad. And they haven't
hmm
presented any evidence one way or the other. So I'm ready to pounce on that. Okay. Anyway, let's see where they actually go. The
Sure.
third sentence starts with the word so. So here comes
hmm
their conclusion for sure. It says,
Yep.
so the city selected a contractor 60% of whose technicians are unqualified, which is an outrage, they continue. And sure enough, we nailed it. We saw it coming.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, I'm willing to grant that only 40% of these technicians are certified by the Heating Technicians Association, but that doesn't mean that everybody else is unqualified.
Yep.
They have assumed that if you're not certified by the Heating Technicians Association, whatever the hell that is, then you are unqualified. But what if there's a heating technicians guild or
That
a
has
heating
certified.
technicians
Yep.
university? Or what if you don't need to have somebody stamp you as a heating technician? What if you've been working in the business for 40 fucking years and you don't need to have anybody, you know, certify you? You
Absolutely.
you could still be more than qualified.
Nathan, have you been certified as an LSAT instructor?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. No, I have not gone through the, Kaplan / Princeton review LSAT teacher training, which would make me clearly unqualified to teach the LSAT. All right. So this one, and I do this in class all the time now. I ask for a show of hands, like, hey, I'll stop halfway through the argument and be like, hey, who knows the answer already?
Hmm.
And the ones who are tuning in, the ones who've been, at it for a while and are really starting to get it, they're like, oh yeah, I saw this one a mile away. Like I know where they're going
Hmm.
in advance because they just keep doing the same dumb shit over and over.
Hmm.
Which one of the following is an assumption required by the argument in the editorial? Turns out to be a necessary assumption question, which I'm glad I didn't know that before I read the passage. Like it would actively have, it certainly wouldn't have helped me. Oh, I'm
Hmm.
looking for a necessary assumption.
Hmm.
What? No, I'm looking to attack a bullshit argument.
Yep.
And yeah, of course, I know that they have necessarily assumed that, if you're not certified by the Heating Technicians Association, then you are unqualified.
Hmm.
That's going to be the answer. This is an easy question. There's a obvious missing piece, and the author would have to agree that if you're not certified by the HTA, then you are unqualified. That's got to be the answer. That's, by the way, both a necessary and a sufficient assumption of the argument. It would also be the answer if this was a strengthen question or a must be true question. I mean, question types matter, but it's so dumb to read the question stem first. I just wrote a long thing about that, by the way, Ben, that's going to come out on Thursday. By the time you read this, sorry, by the time this podcast comes out, that newsletter will already have come out. Um, we
Cool.
can answer all of these question types just by attacking the argument. Yes, it is important that you then read the question so that you can pick an answer that actually answers the question. But we're answering the majority of logical reasoning questions from the argument itself, and we don't need to read the question. Oh, I mean, we do need to read the question, but it doesn't help us to read the question in order to figure out what the answer is going to be from the argument. And you can never do that in reverse. There's not one question in the history of the test where you can read the question stem and know the answer.
I'm
But
gonna
more
create a
than
meme.
half, more
I'm
than
gonna create a
half,
meme. Oh yeah, go ahead.
more than half of the questions on logical reasoning, you can just read the argument and already know the answer.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry for stepping on your attempted joke.
That's all right. I was just gonna create a meme where you say you don't need to read the question.
I mean, you,
Misquote you.
yeah, right, right. You totally do, but when you read the argument well, you already know
Mhm.
what the answer to the question is going to be. It's just a matter of like whose team you're playing for.
Mhm.
Anyway, which one of the following does the author have to agree with? A, certified technicians receive higher pay than uncertified technicians.
Okay. Pay is irrelevant here.
The author doesn't have to agree with anything about pay. There are no contractors with fewer than 40% of their technicians certified.
Okay. We're not talking about other contractors. So I
There
don't
could
care.
be plenty of other better contractors out, contractors that do have 100% of their, oh, sorry, that have zero. There could be worse contractors as far as the
Yeah.
CTA certification goes. There could be worse ones out there as far as their percentage of certification. The author does not have to agree with that. C, technicians who lack certification are not qualified technicians.
Hmm. Yep. That's exactly what we predicted.
That's the obvious missing piece of this argument. And I knew that was, 90%, that was going to be the answer before I even finished reading the argument. I knew that they were going to make some sort of a claim along those lines. I do think that that's both necessary and sufficient.
I agree.
That's one of the reasons why people don't understand the difference between sufficient and necessary assumption questions, is that sometimes on an easy one like this, and I've even seen it in LSAT books,
Hmm.
where they've explained the process wrong, but they get the question right anyway. And yeah, you can skate by and get some of those right on easier ones, but C is not the answer because it makes the argument win.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
our analysis if this was a sufficient assumption question, but it's not.
So the problem is that someone sees an argument required. They think, oh, that means I need a strong assumption, something that's required. And then they start thinking in their head actually of a sufficient assumption. They go looking for it. They find it in answer choice C. Answer choice C ends up being correct. And they say, aha, okay, I understand necessary assumption questions.
But you don't,
Yeah.
because a harder necessary assumption question is going to have a correct answer that the author must agree with, which that's really why C is right here, is because
That's
they've
why
asked us
it's
for a
right.
necessary assumption. The author has to agree with C. Another way of saying that is if C is false, this argument is destroyed. That's why this is the answer to a necessary assumption question. But there are going to be harder necessary assumption questions where there will be a sufficient assumption in the answer choices, something that makes the argument win.
Mm-hmm.
But on that one, that's going to be a wrong answer, because if they've asked you for a necessary assumption, you have to find a necessary assumption. Um, anyway, C is necessary, so it's going to be the right answer for this pretty easy assumption question. D, qualified technicians installed the heating systems to be upgraded.
I don't care about the people who did the work before. Um, the issue is whether these uncertified technicians are qualified, not what happened in the past.
Yeah, the author does not have to agree with anything about anybody who has ever worked on this building in the past. E, the contractor hired by the city has personal ties to city officials.
You wonder what percentage of people pick answers like this, right? Like where did their mind take them to find this tempting?
I mean, if this was a paradox question,
Yeah.
right?
Like you're
Like,
answering the wrong question, maybe.
yeah, if E were true, it might explain why they have hired a contractor whose technicians are, only 40% of them are certified by the Heating Technicians Association,
Yeah.
assuming that that's even good to have that certification. But if it
Yeah.
was, yeah, E would explain, certainly E would explain why they did that. Oh, it's graft.
Yeah.
I've been involved in city government operations before, and I know that all they do is give the deals to their, they have bidding, but it's all fake, and all they really do is give it to their golf buddies. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, that might be true in real life in many circumstances, but it does not have to be true according to whoever wrote this editorial.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's a terrible answer for a necessary assumption question.
Yeah.
The answer here is C. It's the obvious missing piece of that argument. And if you're tuned in properly to these arguments, you should have been yelling about C. Um, you know, probably halfway through the argument. Certainly by the time you got done with the argument. And then when it says necessary assumption, yeah, C is the answer because the author has to agree that that's true.
Cool.
Cool. Let's move along, huh?
Yeah, let's do it. So